For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
.706, welcome to Today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. Good evening, Josh.
Hello, Dan.
And this evening on the program, we'll talk to Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet.
Absolutely.
And that is on the way. We'll also get to some marketing notes. But first, as usual, some of our entrepreneurial news items of the week. And I want to begin with yet another product from Uber. And this one's pretty interesting because it actually helps young entrepreneurs. I like this idea.
Dan, this afternoon, and I'm sure I was one of millions of people that got this. This afternoon, I got an email from Uber called Uber Pitch. Now, Uber Pitch, what are they doing? They are asking their Uber customers that have startup ideas that if they wanted to submit their idea in writing on their Uber platform, and if they get selected, they will have a 15-minute free Uber car ride with an investor in that car. So they'll be able to pitch to an investor, I guess of Uber's choosing, for 15 minutes. They'll pick you up and drop you off at the same location that you register at. And Uber is doing this free of charge. So, okay, or maybe not free of charge. I'm sure they're getting money out of it somehow, and maybe in future income or shares of a company, who knows what. But an absolutely brilliant way to expand yet again the kind of the startup market and putting people together, kind of the speed dating in the car, if you will. Hopefully they don't speed, but speed dating in the car.
That's brilliant. So if an executive or an investor has just a few minutes in his or her day and wants to call an Uber, and there you have it. Wow.
Absolutely brilliant.
All right. Could make many a millionaire. A banner year for securing investments here in Montreal. This is kind of surprising.
You know, it's interesting. When we had Helge Sietzen of Tandem launch on a few weeks ago, we were talking about how the Canadian market is really far behind the U.S. market in its ability to pitch and its ability to really know exactly what the investor is looking for. They're doing okay. This article is saying actually Canada's gotten much better and has actually been able to attract many, many more millions of dollars in this marketplace. And I think it's definitely true. Listen, as we're not as mature as the U.S. market when it comes to this, but we certainly have developed a lot of experience in the last few years. I think what's also helped is the dollar. There's no doubt that, for a U.S. investor, U.S. venture capitalist or private equity firm or angel investor, when they're looking at valuations, and I know they're still looking at Canadian companies and Canadian revenues, but still when they're looking at the cost of a startup company and they're getting a discount of 30% just because of the exchange rate, I have no doubt that is an attractive level too. Combine that with the education that Canadian startups are getting from their U.S. counterparts, from their worldwide counterparts, and it's a good formula. Are we still far behind the U.S. when it comes to learning what to say and who to approach and how to speak? Yes, I absolutely believe we are. But are we getting better? No doubt about it. And if the U.S. dollar continues as it is, good for some, not good for others, but in this case, probably good for some startup companies that are searching for dough.
And you, speaking of startups searching for dough, and you, I guess Uber-like app reminds me of Montreal-based BusBud. This one is called Share the Bus.
This is another, I don't think it's not necessarily a ride-sharing program, but it's certainly, and it might cater maybe to more of the youth, but not necessarily. This is actually an interesting business, and there was a gap in the marketplace where somebody said, you know what, there is a downtime for these coach buses, these school buses, and there's definitely places to go. So why can't we rent one? Why can't we get a discounted rate? Somebody has to take the responsibility. They share the bus. Somebody has to take the responsibility of hiring the entire bus and having the app out there, and people log on and say, yes, I want to go there. I want to go here. I want to go there. But then they'll take it a step further, because not all bus routes offer what exactly the passenger wants. If they're going to say, okay, we're going to go see the Grateful Dead in Toronto, well then, maybe they can get a whole bunch of people together, pass through Ottawa, head to Toronto, have Grateful Dead music playing, cater to the passengers more than that. I think it's just another aspect that that there's a gap in the marketplace. Somebody found it. Somebody's exploiting it, and I think it's a great original idea.
This is a pretty neat idea. A Vancouver company is looking to sort of modify the way that people are doing so-called robo-investing. Can you tell us first what's meant by robo-investing? Is this like high-frequency trading, so where the computers sort of determine what you should invest in and where?
Well, to a degree it is, Dan. I mean, robo-investing, it's kind of a preset parameter list of questions you answer, and they kind of design a portfolio that would suit you, a portfolio that would be more these exchange traded funds, these ETFs that a lot of people hear about because they're very low cost. They get you direct access to the marketplace, unlike mutual funds that are more expensive, and it's really a blend of a whole bunch of areas and you don't own the stock directly. So these ETF exchange traded funds are becoming, because they've come into existence in the last few years, it's been easier for these platforms to create an option for people to invest. And not only that, but people to invest if you only have maybe a few $1,000s versus, waiting until you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can actually go see an investor and get their point of view. Here you have a few $1,000s. It's because it's a platform, it's electronic, it's online, it's developed, it's preset. Is it perfect? No. But for somebody with a few $1,000s that doesn't want to spend a lot of money in costs of an investment advisor, and cost of a mutual fund, it's an excellent opportunity. I think BMO came out with one fairly recently, a couple of months ago, as maybe one of the first big banks to come out with this, and I think it's easy. I want to say it's easy money, but it kind of is. It's easy money for the banks to attract the low-level investor with low-level cost.
So this is from the Financial Post. The CEO of Modern Advisor says his company plans to make itself distinct by being the only robo-advisor to emphasize responsible investing.
And you hear this a lot, and certainly if they're attacking the youth of the market, the millennials, the next gen, if they're going there, there's no question that those generations are looking on the responsibility side, or on the social responsibility side. They're looking for companies that are going to give back. And I believe in this article, it's also saying, if you can find the niche, if you can prove that you're giving back, people will actually be attracted to you as well. So there's two sides to that. And I think the social responsibility of investing is quite interesting. And while it might not always appeal to the baby boomers, although to some, it absolutely seems to appeal to millennials, Generation X, Y, etc.
Now, branding. Sometimes everything is a name, and in this case, we read about in the Financial Post as well, the Life is Good company. And when you have a name like that, a lot of expectations.
And this is a perfect example of that social responsibility company, a socially responsible company that is giving back part of their profits. I mean, there's a number of companies out there that advertise how much, what they give back to the community. 10 Tree is one of them. They make T-shirts as well, and for every T-shirt you buy, they plant 10 trees, so they call it 10 Tree. This Life is Good company is basically working on that model. I won't say one copy of the other because there's a number of companies out there, but they basically, in different regions, are giving back to the community, and they are saying, buy from us and we give back to the community. So every dollar that comes into you, you're helping out a child here or an environment there, and it's a reason to buy from that company that is beyond the product itself.
Real quick from entrepreneur.com, I don't agree with any of these points, but Greg Schwartz, who writes about Donald Trump, says 5 marketing lessons learned by watching Donald Trump run for president. Real quick, know your audience, know your brand, be audacious, trust yourself, and no apologies.
And Dan, they are all important to some people somewhere. I would say know your audience is probably at the top of the list with many things. The rest of it certainly has an application here or there, but know your audience, you always have to know your audience.
No apologies. Not so sure that that should be the case with Donald Trump all the time. I think he owes a few people some apologies. But
and I think your online reputation, sometimes you might have to apologize. Anyhow.
Coming up, Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet, our profile this evening on Today's Entrepreneur.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:20 on today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL Fuller Landau's Josh Miller with you. And this evening, we're chatting with Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet. Carmelo, welcome to CJD.
Thank you.
So, easiest question off the top. Tell us about yourself and what SprayNet does.
So we pride ourselves on saying that SprayNet is the most cost-effective way to increase a home's curb appeal. So essentially what we do is we change the color of our home. Contrary to conventional exterior painting, we offer a permanent exterior paint solution that's guaranteed 15 years, doesn't look repainted, and is done in one day.
Now, how in the world did you get into this business?
So I was a student painting franchisee. Often people would ask me to paint certain things, and I would, towards my second or third year of student painting, I would hesitate because I didn't want to quote unquote ruin that surface because I knew it would blister peel eventually, and it essentially looked repainted. So for example, a front door, even though I did them all myself and I took the time to do it properly, still always looked repainted. So I was looking at doors that are brand new, and I said, well, why can't we just do it the way that that's done? That's been painted. I mean, metal's not black, right? So then that's when we looked into the factory and we said, okay, how are they doing it in the factory? And then how can we bring that on site?
So this is, you were a franchisee, you were a student painter, and the thought process was, I want to go out on my own because you weren't happy with the paints that were provided at the time?
Not even necessarily. At first, once I was done college pro, I was going to be a stockbroker. But I had sent out a couple flyers, talking about how we were going to spray homes. And then a couple people called me back. Luckily, I should thank them, actually. I should call them and thank them. But and then we said, well, this is actually a need. If people know about this, they'll want to get it done. And that's really how it happened. So I guess we got the idea from seeing the need through painting people's homes, and then we figured out how to do it throughout the years.
What do you know about mixing paint and chemicals?
Now everything.
but at the time, I mean, did you have to start from scratch? Did you learn from something like why learn that?
Yeah, well, I like to correct myself. I don't know everything. We never know everything. We're always learning new things, but no, I mean, at the time, essentially what I was just looking for was a better finish. So at first I was like, well, what if we spray on these same products? Well, they'll look a lot better. Problem is, if you spray on the same products, you still get the same properties, just with a better finish. So then what we did is we went to the factories and we said, oh, how can we bring these on site? Problem was they were solvent-based, toxic, can't spray those on site. Mm-hmm. So then that's when we really had to look into the chemistry of things, talk to chemists, formulators, and said, how can we replicate the properties, but in a water-based formulation that we can apply on site?
Was there a trigger point that you stopped being the student painter, the franchisee, and said, okay, now I'm going to go to the dark side, go to the next level?
Well, how student painting works is it's a one summer contract, so it's not like it's renewable or not. Should you choose to decide to do so. So once I graduated from university, the contract was just not renewable, and that's when I just decided, okay, let me do this on my own, because I kind of declined my job as a stockbroker after receiving those calls, and then yeah.
So if I understand correctly, you're going from franchisee to franchisor. And when we come back from the break, we'll kind of explore and talk to you a little bit about, again, going to the dark side of franchisor.
Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet, our guest this evening on today's Entrepreneur.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:25 on today's Entrepreneur. Our guest is Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet. When you were going through the whole student painting system, did you get a sense there that, wow, maybe I should be a franchisor? Maybe that's the way to go.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I learned a ton from College Pro, from their processes, their training. So it was first developing the product, saying, is this actually possible? Is there a market for it? So I did it on my own for 3 years. We actually built it to a bit over 35 employees. And then we said, well, maybe this is repeatable, scalable. We know what we're doing at this point. Let's franchise the business.
And so in your first 3 years, how long did it take you to actually, because you said there's some R&D involved. You have to create, you have to have the right mix. And of course you want to do it on site. So right. There's regulations to follow. How long did it take before you actually got that formula right?
So the formula is never completely finished. We're in continuous development all the time. So waterborne technology is fairly new in the industry. So there's always new resins coming out, new ways to blend things. So we're always in continuous development. But you mean getting a formulation that works? I mean, took us at least 2 years. So initially we were just spraying premium exterior products, but on site just getting a better finish. When we realized this is still not good enough. This is not really the factory to the homeowner. It's just a nicer finish on a conventional paint job.
you don't have that chemical engineering background. You certainly learned some along the way. Did you ever feel beholden to the chemists and the people mixing that, if you didn't have them, you couldn't go to the next stage? Or did you make sure you kind of covered your rear end with some additional knowledge?
So whenever we get any kind of new employee or supplier, I always like to be, quote unquote, not an expert, but know as much as possible so that I know that what they're saying is true. So before even approaching the formulators, like I was on Google and taking courses till like 3 in the morning. So I was able to speak the same language as them, because it's such an important part of our business that you need to know it. You can't just trust that what they're saying is true. And at the same time, they don't necessarily know what you know. So combination of the way that I know you need to apply it with their chemistry is what really creates the proper formulation.
Now you said was it difficult to find the factory to begin with, to find that factory that could work with you and produce, or start your own, of course?
So yeah, I just started my own.
Did you try finding others first? Did you subcontract?
No.
It wasn't even part of the equation.
No, it didn't feel like it. It takes too long. No, I'm kidding. But it's just because I like to do things on my own. I like to really be, in control, I guess, if you will, and grasp knowledge for myself. So yeah, we started our own.
Now, as a franchisee, you certainly have to follow the rules of the franchisor, whatever they may have been. They may have consulted with you, they may not have. What are some of the things that you learned as a franchisee that you started to apply as a franchisor?
Well, I learned that I'm a horrible franchisee because I like to do things my way. So that's also why I knew that I had to do my own thing. However, what I did learn through franchising, and not just through College Pro, is choosing the right profile to be a franchisee. Because again, I'm not a franchisee profile, and at first I was looking for someone like me, and I quickly realized that's not exactly who we need to be looking for in a franchisee.
So you developed your own criteria of what to look for?
Well, Canada the last 2 years has been a bit of a testing ground, I guess, if you will. We've have a whole array of different profiles of franchisees. Now we're starting to really zero in on who are our top performers and who we need as franchisees going forward. And that's really what we're taking away to go into the U.S. development. And that's probably the most important thing we learned in the last 2 years. So
when you're looking for the next franchisee, or maybe you can share experience of some of the past franchisees, what have you looked for? What has really turned the table? What has pushed them over the edge? Say, you know what, I want to work with this person.
So there's been an evolution in the type of franchisees that we're getting into the system. So it's kind of like it's been a 3-wave process. Initially it was owner operators. I was looking for people with one territory who would be fully involved in their territory and potentially buy a second one. Then in year 2, as the word spread, we were getting, business people interested in our model. And now winning international competitions, being on Dragon's Den, we're getting top business people. So we're looking at more of the multi-unit approach. We have bank VPs on board, CEOs of multi-million-dollar companies who purchase 5 territories. So it's a bit of a different profile, and it's great.
And I think I want to explore that further because it's interesting, as you say, going from owner-operator to taking the business side of it. But of course, those contests that you enter, and we talk about all the time with entrepreneurs, always interesting to hear about, especially the one on Dragon's Den that we'll explore when we come back after the break.
Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet, our guest this evening on Today's Entrepreneur. Also later in the show, we'll chat about marketing, traditional versus online marketing, and reputation management.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:34. Welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur, presented by FL Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guest this evening is Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet. And Carmelo, you started out as a painter, and you decided to sort of go in a different direction with your career. I guess you wanted to be in finance. What made you sort of go into the trades? What did you think that would be a better long-term bet?
Well, I kind of just fell into it with the student painting. It was kind of just a summer job. And then I realized there was an opportunity there. I mean, everybody out of school wants to be a stockbroker. Nobody wants to be a painter. So, I mean, I guess more opportunity definitely where not everybody's going. So it just made sense.
You made an interesting point before the break saying that you started with franchisees that were owner operators, so that they would go out and they would do the spray painting themselves and all that. But then you said there was a shift to more the business people out there, more not the doers, but like the owners, the people that have been in business for a number of years.
Right.
Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on what the biggest difference was and why you veered that way?
So the biggest difference is just the conversations we have with these types of people, and it's just it kind of happens organically given our rapid growth. So I mean, because we're just expanding across Canada, it would just be too many franchisees for us to handle if we had one franchisee for every territory. So I mean, we can cover Canada with 20 franchisees or with 60 franchisees, and we're still covering Canada. So it just made sense for us to work with less franchisees who can manage more people, and it just makes sense for the franchisor and the franchise partner too, because then we can benefit from franchise partners doing multi-million dollars in sales.
Do you feel that as past business owners or past executives that they just get it more and they ask better questions, smarter questions, easier to deal with?
Yeah, they're not necessarily easier to deal with because they're more demanding, but the conversations are different. They're more they speak the same language, I guess, if you will. So we can get places much quicker, whereas we don't have to kind of get to the basics. It's just like, okay, here's the strategy. This is how we're going to implement it. And, the language is the same, right? We're both speaking the same thing.
Now let's talk contests. You have entered yourselves in various contests, including Dragon's Den, which,
Right.
Very popular. Everybody loves it, watches it. They I don't know if everybody knows what goes on behind the scenes or afterwards, but maybe you can recount quickly what, I guess, the best and most challenging part of being on Dragon's Den.
Well, I actually really enjoyed the experience. I find it was a huge adrenaline rush. Actually, they had to stop me a couple of times because I went outside of the yellow circle for TV. So, I mean, the best part of it was getting to meet all those people and really getting the exposure on TV. That really, really was a catalyst to our growth. We wouldn't have been able to sell out Canada so quickly had we not been on the show.
Did you get a deal?
Yeah, we did get a deal. we got a deal. We actually made history on Dragons Den. It was the first time Gyms for Living made a deal under 20%. And we actually asked for 5% deal. So that was definitely very validating for us that, we're doing something right, and even the top business people in the world think we are. So
now, did the deal close in the end?
No. So what happened is that was filmed over a year ago in March of last year. And we were heading into our very busy season, and there was a lot of due diligence, and we said, you know what, let's just keep everything on the ice. They said, yeah, we'd be willing to be reapproached. But then, a year after, our business completely shifted, completely changed. So, the deal wasn't the same. They were willing to change the valuation, but at that point, we didn't really see the benefit of going forward.
Now, that was a catalyst, but there was another contest, an international contest that you felt you wanted to enter. Describe that one.
Yeah, that one was actually amazing. Just the experience was phenomenal because we were actually there was about I think a bit over 500 applicants from across the world. So it's a whole bunch of young franchisors under 35 years old. We were named in the top 20, so we were winners for the top 20. We were all flown in from across the world, literally from everywhere across the world, to San Antonio at the IFA Summit, the International Franchise Association Summit, where we pitched in front of 3 top CEOs from the franchise world who chose the top 3. And then the top 3 pitched in front of all of the IFA. So those 5,000 people in the audience, we're talking about the CEO of Subway in the audience, like all the top people in the franchise industry, and the audience actually voted for the number one, and they voted to Spraynet. They voted us the number one franchisor in the world, young franchisor in the world.
Now, with your experience on Dragons Den, pitching to the Dragons, your experience at this international franchisor contest, pitching there. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to the next franchisor? What would you say to emphasize in your pitch?
Pitch, really just, there's no point in really practicing. It's just know your business. There shouldn't be a question that you can't answer. And if you can't answer the question, well, you shouldn't be winning those types of competitions. That was the same thing with Dragons Den. There was no question that I wasn't ready to answer. And that's really just gives you the confidence to be able to go out there and just have fun.
Now, these contests are great for marketing purposes. They certainly get your name out there.
Right.
Have you done anything else, like from the time you first started till now? What's been your marketing strategy that has either worked or maybe something that has completely flopped that you can't do again?
You know, you know what? I wouldn't say anything is a complete flop because I think any effort yields some sort of result. Some things yield a higher result than others. But the beauty of our business is that the second people know about it, they want it. It's just the problem is people don't know about it. So definitely online has been a bit of a challenge because people are not searching for it because they don't know. So it has to do a bit of a long tail strategy for curb appeal and then to exterior painting, nurturing the leads, and then eventually just educating them so that they can find out about our service and ask for it. So online definitely has been the best.
It has been your best form of educating the consumer.
No, educating the consumer has been through these competitions, through stuff like this. That kind of stuff definitely reaches the masses, and then people talk about it, and then they search for you. So the online stuff has been mainly to convert.
Now, you need, like any business and startup, and today with Growth Factor, you need a strong team around you.
Right.
Tell me your experience, and I don't know, how many people are you today at SprayNet?
So we're close to 85. A good portion of that, I'd say 55 of those people are actually working in the field in our corporate territories. So the remainder are supporting our franchise system. And I actually like that you talk about that because, the media and all these interviews and all these prizes are all about the entrepreneur. But, they all glorify the entrepreneur. But, that's a specific profile and just one piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of smart people around the entrepreneur. We never talk about them. So I'm glad to talk about them right now.
Here's the opportunity.
Yeah.
And who would you... Okay, when you're looking for these people, because you still have to select them. It's
right.
not, some of them might approach you after getting some notoriety on air or whatever, what have you, but you still have to select them. What is your criteria in selecting your key people?
So the first criteria literally is, would I like to hang out with this person for more than a day? If the answer is I can't stand that person after 10 minutes, well, forget it. I'm working with this person probably 80 hours a week. That's not going to fit our culture.
Regardless of what they know or where they came from
Doesn't
or who
matter.
their contact base is.
Doesn't matter. I don't think past performance is an indicator of the future, and I think cultural fit is the number one criteria. And then after that, obviously experience, skill set, that's definitely the second. But number one, definitely, do I want to hang out with this person?
So you're looking for franchisees that are particularly friendly, that could get along with customers, that kind of thing?
Well, of course. If we're talking about franchisees, it's the same selection process, essentially, just a different profile. But when we're talking about the staff, we're with my wife won't like that I say this, but I'm probably with them more than I am with her. So, I better like them.
she knows it's true, but she knows you love her as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So question. Have you ever hired somebody that said, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have hired that person?
Oh yeah, of course it happens all the time. And then,
do you realize quickly? Are you quick to react over time? What have you been doing?
So I think my biggest default is my inability to react quickly to that kind of stuff. Because I'm like, oh, that person will change. We can develop this person. Let's see this as a challenge. And then, time and time again, you're disappointed. And if it's one thing, if I have a New Year's resolution for 2016, I gave myself is not to keep doing that, because you just prolong it, and it's not a win-win for anybody, because that person also doesn't feel good. It's not just the business, but the person within the business, which is uncomfortable. And then it just ends up being sour for all parties.
So when you say you hire you need to be able to spend a day with them or not, is it possible to get too friendly with them so you can't make that right decision afterwards?
Yeah, but look, our fourth value, I guess, is having fun. And having fun, if you're happy, it just makes everybody more productive. And just no, I don't think you can have too much fun, because I think happiness is the key to success.
I'm a believer you can't have too much fun, especially if you enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
So you started in Montreal, you expanded throughout Quebec, you're going across Canada. What's next for SprayNet?
So clearly it's the U.S. It's a no-brainer for us. Canada's pretty much full. So now we're working on solidifying our team, building our new head office so that we can house everybody, and then franchise development and support.
Now, why I guess for the obvious reason is the U.S. and do you get help south of the border?
You mean, do we get help from?
Well, yeah, it's a different market. You've gained knowledge in franchising overall,
right?
But it is a different market. Do you feel everything applies the same, or do you feel your experience in Canada has truly prepped you, or are you going to search out somebody south of the border that might have a little bit more knowledge in that?
Yeah, so our vice president actually has 37 years of international franchise experience. At the IFA, I met a ton of top CEOs, one of whom I'm still in touch with on a weekly basis, just to, maybe in case we didn't think of something. So yeah, we definitely like to surround ourselves with the right people. If you think you know everything, you have another thing coming. So.
No, exactly, and I it's a great story, and we're kind of running out of time, but glad to hear that it's that you're expanding south of the border. That certainly people there can experience all this great added curb appeal to their home.
Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet will have his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur on the way. Plus, Philippe Cousson, who does business development at FL, will chat with us about marketing, traditional versus digital. That is on the way.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL Fuller Landau's Josh Miller with you. Carmelo Marsala with us from SprayNet will have his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur on the way. But first, we're joined by Philippe Cousson, who's in charge of business development at Fuller Landau, and here to talk a bit about marketing. Philippe, welcome to today's entrepreneur.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
So, Josh, traditional versus digital in the marketing industry, we're still sort of trying to find a correct balance, and it's kind of in between a lot. I mean, you can't ignore either one.
You listen to pretty much most of our past shows, Dan, and we have focused on online marketing to the nth degree. But the reality is traditional marketing still does have its place. So, we'll turn to Philippe and maybe we'll start our discussion there. Are traditional marketing tools still useful in gaining new business?
Absolutely. I think telemarketing is still the way to go, especially in the B2C environment, which is your case, Carmelo. And I think it's you got to be cautious about a few things, especially the regulations. If you look at the CRTC right now, you need to prepare and act accordingly. So there's some guidelines out there. So you need to refer to a professional at all times.
Now, traditional marketing, that also, would include print, would include trade shows. There must be a place depending on the type of business.
Absolutely. I think direct mailing is still a very good strategy. It still works. I think Canada Post has a great program out there, so you should definitely look into that as well. Email marketing, again, is also a very good tool. But you need to be careful with the regulations. The new bill C-28 came about last year, and it's designed to regulate the best practices. For an example, Porter got fined $150,000 in January 2015 for not applying the regulations in their strategy. So
now there's no question people are always weighing the bang for the buck. To the traditional marketing, the trade shows, the mailings and all that, they cost, whereas the online can cost. You can boost your posts and you can do, but it certainly might cost much less. So if we go into the social media aspect, well then, how do you leverage technology in that B2C, in that business to consumer environment?
Well, just like in SprayNet's case, there's two sides to technology. There's, of course, online SEO, SEM, social media, but there's also, again, leveraging technology for an example, using tablets in trade shows for you to get some leads and qualify those leads and maybe send an estimate at one point for you to limit the sales cycle of a potential sale. Also, again, online booking applications, especially in the B2C world, I think it's a great tool, again, to collect qualified contact information, but also, again, using CRM to track those data and those leads as well is definitely a great tool.
And you say CRM, which is, customer relationship management software, because what we find in many cases, people are not measuring everything they do. They can't manage what you can't measure. So CRM, the CRM software, is usually quite important that not everybody really links to, right?
Absolutely. There's some tools and CRM applications out there that are free or will only cost you a couple of $100. So they're great to track your funnel, your pipeline, potential leads, and also to learn about your competitive landscape and what the client is expecting from your product.
And I think that's what people don't understand is these CRM, these customer relationship management, don't have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. They can be, but they can be small as well.
Absolutely.
But then there's also the online reputation, which I think when we come back from the break, we'll talk about that. And certainly in business to consumer, you have people that make their comments online, and you have to really manage that if they're not always so positive. So we'll address that when we come back after the break.
Philippe Cousson of Fuller Landau, plus Carmelo Marsala, and his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur on the way.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
We're chatting about business development and traditional versus digital marketing with Philippe Cousson of Fuller Landau, plus Carmelo Marsala joining us of SprayNet. We'll have his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur on the way, Josh.
Now, Carmelo, I know before we wanted to talk a little bit about online reputation, and certainly when you're dealing with consumers in your industry, anybody dealing with consumers, there is an ease for a consumer to write an online review, to reach out to the world without your knowledge, that you and every other entrepreneur that has to deal with consumers has to manage. How do you handle that?
Well, I'd like to start with I've lost my Facebook privileges. Given my passion and impatience combined together, I'm not allowed to answer certain customers because, I mean, what's sad about that is people are quick to go on if they're not happy with something because they want to get their way. But when they're really happy with something, they're not as quick to do so. So, I mean, you definitely need to address it because part of our franchise growth has been attributed to the fact that our team answers very well the Facebook comments, and sometimes it's not even real customers. So you still have to let people know, hey, we can't find you anywhere. You're not actually a customer of ours. So, please respond to us or call us privately. And they don't, of course.
And hopefully your good relationships, you try to encourage them to write their real positive
you
reviews.
Leverage them, of course. Yeah.
So, Philippe, with this online reputation, I'm sure there are some guidelines, some things that entrepreneurs should know about. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I think you need to be aware that negative comments are always they're unavoidable. They're always going to be out there available, so and produced by competitors or unhappy clients or just random people out there. But I guess some of the best practices would be to react quickly and to address that criticism and again, in all transparency, react and be present.
And I mean, Dan, you deal with this on a daily basis as well. What are the kind of challenges that you see in online reputation management?
I've been doing this for about 5 years now, and the thing that surprises me the most is that PR used to be something that is just for large corporations or major personalities. But even once in a while, I have a small business owner who needs to really diffuse something online. It could be something as silly as a Yelp review or a Facebook complaint that went viral. But even small businesses once in a while need to at least dip their toe into the online space to make sure that the conversations about their brand are actually productive, and sometimes they're not.
Is there a point where you just have to say stop, or it's not worth replying to, or somebody's just digging in for no reason? For
sure. I mean, every complaint is different. Online, there are a lot of anonymous weirdos, people that just want to slam you. Often the competition will do that too. So you have to sort of look at the global picture, and if most of the conversations happening about your brand are generally positive, then you have the luxury of avoiding not necessarily responding to those nasty trolls, so to speak. But if there are a few of them, then you got to address those issues.
No, and as you guys have all said, you got to react quickly and positively, and maybe your Facebook rights will come back to you, Carmelo, one day.
Probably not.
So as we approach the last moment of our show, as we do every week, we'll turn to Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet and ask you, Carmelo, what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur?
Well, it actually ties into what you just said, a sense of urgency. Do it now, because if you don't do it now, you'll never get it done. And I feel like that's what a lot of people lack. And I mean, I just want to maybe add something else. Surround yourself with the right people. I mean, we didn't talk about them enough because we don't have much time, but really it's all about the team. A business is people, right? So that would be it.
Thank you. And Dan, the takeaway I got that, again, we kind of glossed over pretty quickly, was that when Carmelo meets a supplier or engages somebody around him, he does inform himself a little bit. He doesn't become the expert, but he knows enough to know if the person in front of him is really shoveling the BS or not being so truthful. He can spot it and he can eye it. And I think arming himself with that information as an entrepreneur is absolutely huge and very, very beneficial.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks to Philippe Cousson talking about business development marketing. We'll have you back on more shows, Philippe, on the program. So and Carmelo Marsala of SprayNet. Carmelo, best of luck. It's a great local success story, and good luck with your expansion down south.
Thanks a lot.
Back next Monday night at 7 here on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800. The Exchange with Lise Ravery is next.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.